First and foremost, thank you for joining us. Now, Pastor Mike, how did you first get involved with the church? Like, when was the first time that you knew about the church itself?
I come from a long line of pastors. You know, my father's a pastor, Pastor Mike McClure Sr. My grandfather's Bishop Calvin Woods. My great uncle was Bishop Abraham Woods. They were the last people to see Dr. King alive in Birmingham. Dr. Martin Luther King wouldn't move in Birmingham without calling my grandfather. He's the president of the SCLC. That's the organization that Dr. King founded. So as a child, I didn't have the luxury of like running the streets or kicking it. For me, it was hearing stories about Dr. King, Abernathy, Shuttlesworth, reading letters that they passed to each other, revival, going to church. The only thing I can remember ever loving is just God, church, football, and PlayStation. So for me, as a kid, I just always fell in love with God and loved helping people and loved being in church and loved making a difference.
At what point did music become something that was important to you as well, mixed in with church?
It was all together. You know, for me, God, music, and church, it was all one thing. I can remember my dad used to travel. This is back in the day when they did revivals. So he would get in the car and drive to Mississippi and preach. And I was with him one night. He was like, Mike, I want you to sing for me. And I walked up there and I was like, I got a mind to live for Jesus. And everybody was clapping, you know, in church, Father, help him, Jesus, bless the children, Lord. So, man, it's just always been something of mine. I did praise and worship for him. I've always loved music. I can remember one Christmas I told my dad I wanted a drum set. I wanted to turn my room into a studio. And looking back at it now, he went to the pawn shop, bought me some drums, bought me a PA, bought me a mix, and a cord microphone. And I would be in there playing Fred Hammond, playing John P. Key. I learned to play the drums by ear. And I would be in there singing all day. So music has always kind of been at the lifeline. I noticed as a young kid that while church was going on, sometimes kid would be playing during the sermon or an old guy be in the back sleep during the message. But when the music came on, everybody would be up clapping and kind of feeling it. So for me, man, I always wanted to find a way to just use these gifts that God gave me to impact and touch lives.
What's some of the accolades that you can run off that you've accomplished when it comes to the world of gospel?
And gospel music for me, man, has been a journey. 3 years ago, I'm at church, right? And I just randomly say, and it's gonna be big. I wake up the next morning, that clip is at close to 1 million views. I get a phone call that says, hey, you better record that song before somebody takes it. I pick up the phone and just say, hey, let's just go to the studio and do this. I meet a brother by the name of Kerry Douglas, and he tells me, if you trust me, this is the #1 song in gospel music. So 3 years ago, I had no music. 3 years later, Big was #1 for 10 weeks. I Got It was #1 for 4 weeks. Amazing just went #1. So in 3 years, that's three #1s, a #1 album. I was New Artist of the Year my first year. I've been Artist of the Year in gospel music for the last 2 years. So that's 11 Stellar Awards in 3 years. And everybody keeps saying, man, like, how does it feel? And honestly, I don't even think it's hit me yet because we haven't stopped working. We haven't stopped moving. So for me, I'm excited. We're getting ready to drop an EP, getting ready to drop a new album. So when it comes to music, man, I just love creating and impacting.
It's interesting to see that you also, with your father being in the church and you seeing maybe him representing traditional church, and then now you being a young man and there's a certain newness. And the times that I've seen, and when the newness comes in, there seems to be sometimes restriction or restraint of allowing to happen. I remember Kirk Franklin when he came out with Stomp. He did something that I thought was impactful because he was reaching a newer and a bigger audience through his music. Do you feel like there's current or recent hesitation about the sound of gospel? Is it sounding too hip-hop-ish or do you get any backlash?
I do myself up, incubate myself. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So for me, I spent the last 10 years loving people and trying to build a community around me who understood who I was and the message I was trying to preach. I always often joke, we're not trying to reinvent the wheels, we're just trying to put some 20s on it. You know, and what I've discovered a lot of times is, man, that most times the newness of what people do is rejected because it lacks substance. So for me, like on I Got It, it's very urban. It went number 17 on the Urban AC hip hop charts. You know, I was tripping because I got the email. There was like the most added songs this week in hip hop was Drake and Pastor Mike Jr.
Wow.
And I never forget it. As hip hop as it was what grandmama sang. You grew up in the church. It said, "Can't nobody do me like Jesus." I came back and said, "Can't nobody do me like you, Jesus." So it's the same message, just finding a different way to convey it. You know this, man. I had the precious privilege of being from Birmingham, Alabama, but I also studied at Yale Divinity. So it's the sweet mix of soul and science. So for me, when I approach music, when I approach communicating, when I approach preaching, I do it in a psychological but a yet authentic way. You know, so for me, man, I try my best to always tap into what is the language. I live in America, so I speak English. But here's what's crazy. But because I'm from the hood, I also speak Ebonics. So Ebonics is a sub of English. And if you're not from that way, you can't communicate. If I was to tell somebody from suburban America, pray for me when I leave, I'm going to go chill at the crib. If they had to break open a dictionary, they would say he's going to go to a cold place and get in a baby's bed, because chill denotes temperature, crib denotes a baby bed. But because I'm from the urban context, I know chill means relax and crib is the what? The house. So I think in the gospel realm, a lot of times we have preachers who are preaching in a language that don't resonate. So we say things like, man, God's going to give you provision. And Pookie in the back like, man, what the heck is provision?
Right.
And for me, provision means pro before vision. God's going before you, making a way. Just like this beautiful facility we're in, somebody built this and you had no idea when you guys were having the vision for it, provision. God was already getting all them out the way, bringing it to the price you need, the place you need. And that's my special power. It's this ability to communicate, or to be this urban apologet. I would say to be this urban Christian contemporary translator who can look at somebody and say, God did. But you have to understand, in order to say God did, number one, who did it? It's God. Number two, did.
That's a good point.
You know, it's just translating.
You just mentioned God did.
Yeah.
There seems to be a blend also happening where hip hop is now jumping into the world of gospel or using certain references. You had Kanye drop a gospel album. You had other artists kind of like, how do you process that? Do you feel like gospel is being co-opted by hip hop? Is it being like, how do you process that?
It's bifold. So the pastor in me loves it, because I think for years there was this connotation that you had to be perfect to say his name. So if I had any flaws, any issues, I couldn't say his name. When the last time I checked, every person who was used by God in the Bible had an issue. So for me, when Kanye does Jesus is King, or when Drake says I need a little more Jesus, or when DJ Khaled says God did, to me, I just love seeing God being put on blast like that, man. Conversely, being a gospel artist, I have moments when I'm like, yo, it's people in the industry who've been working 40 years for certain moments. And I feel like they should get their just due. You know, I feel like a Maverick City should be Artist of the Year, not necessarily a Kanye in that genre. Because to me, he's a hip hop artist who did a gospel song, not necessarily classified as a gospel artist. At the same time, I don't want to give in to semantics. If somebody's being saved because they was listening to a Ye album or listening to DJ Khaled say God did, my little son was walking around saying God did, God did. That message alone got power, bro. Yeah. So for me, man, I don't run from it. I love it, man. One of my dreams is to do a project and have a little baby and have a 2 Chainz and have all these different people come together, because what I'm realizing is whether we like it or not, they have the ear of the culture. And if we're going to impact the culture and infiltrate the culture, we got to have people bold enough to say his name.
How long you been being a pastor for?
And I started this is a crazy question, all right? So in 2009, I'm 25 years old. I hear the Lord tell me to start a church. I take my 10 friends who I was doing youth and college ministry with at Miles College, and we go to Fairfield. I take my savings. I hold a spaghetti dinner. And I say, everybody who's ever believed in me, if you don't mind, give me some money so we can start this church. We bought some speakers. We paid our rent up for 6 months. And in 2009, we started Rock City Church. It was 10 of us. So if I can give you the quick version, 2009 is 10 of us. 2010 is probably 13 or 1400 of us. 2011 is 5 to 7,000 people in an arena. We haven't looked back. So for me, I think the best part about it has been impacting lives. We paid off over $1 million worth of medical debt for everybody in the city of Birmingham region.
Yeah.
We've been able to give away hundreds and thousands of dollars in scholarships. Every time the city needs something in Birmingham, it's called Rock City, call Pastor Mike. And to me, and somebody watching me right now who's frustrated with what you're going through, always remember your misery becomes your ministry and your pain becomes your reason for living. Right now, I'm on one of the dopest platforms right now. And they're telling me I'm the first gospel artist or pastor to be on this platform. This is a form of ministry. And I think the reason so many people are running from God and also running from church is because we were taught if you didn't stand in a pulpit, if you didn't wear a suit, if your dress wasn't all the way to the floor, if you didn't wear makeup, then God could use you. From where you are, comedy hype. The Bible says laughter is a gift. Every time they make somebody laugh, that's a form of ministry. And I believe if we all can tap into what God has given us, the world will be a better place.
So one thing is that you mentioned just now is that people's hesitation with joining the church because it makes you feel like you have to be perfect. Were there any hesitations about your own ascension into becoming a pastor? Were there hesitations because a pastor's a real deal, man? Like you got to really be thorough about that position.
I had a lot of hesitations, man. I had a child out of wedlock, so for me, man, I never forget. I had to stand before church leaders, and some of y'all remember the old school church. When you messed up, you had to go stand before them and tell them what you did. Wow. And I can remember I was young, 22, maybe 23. And I can remember standing before the church leaders and I said, hey, I made a mistake. I had a child on the way. But I said something I never forget. I said, this won't be my trump card. 7 years from now, you won't say God can't use me because of this. Last time I checked, Jesus was from a blended family. And the word on Shade Room was Joseph wasn't his daddy. So think about that, man. So for me, I have reservations. Would God use? What would people think? And I never forget, man. I love my son, man. Xander, he lives with me. I love him with all my heart. We have an incredible relationship. Every Sunday, people come to the altar and be like, hey, man, can you pray with me and my wife, me and my family? And I'm seeing all of these blended families come together. Think about this. Think about right now, how many people in your life who don't even know their dad. I didn't want to be another brother who ran away from responsibility, man. So there's so many people. I mean this, man. Think about how dope the church would be if we stopped condemning. And this may be a quote right here. You can't evangelize and criticize at the same time.
Right.
You can't do that. So for me, like, look at all y'all doing. I'm in a room right now in the ATL with some cold-blooded millennials, some cold-blooded young people, cameras everywhere, lights everywhere, production on point. How powerful would the church be if there was a place that said, hey, bro, I love you just the way you are. You can come with weed in your pocket. You can come saying I ain't got it all together. Just come. How dope would the church be if we could do this for him?
I think that's what's been the hypocrisy at times that people feel because, the church is preaching love, but some of that sometimes come out as like hate. I will speak on this in particular. You growing up in Birmingham, that's a southern city. Birmingham is known for, there's a southern city, racism back in the day.
Yeah.
How do you process white Christians that were preaching love but practicing hate?
I got a song on my new album that's getting ready to come out called Not Jesus, and it may get me in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
Because the hook says, Black Jesus, that's an apocalyptic poetic image, but it's not Jesus. Blonde hair, blue eyes, white Jesus. I hate to say it, but that's not Jesus. And the idea that so many young people, especially young millennials and African Americans, are wrestling with is how can the God of the oppressed and the oppressor be the same? Like, how can this Jesus you preach, and especially when Christianity was used as a weapon to manipulate and hold black people down during slavery.
Right.
That's a big
conversation.
deal that we cannot erase. So the thing I had the ability of doing is studying at Ashland Theological Seminary or the McCrary Center with William H. Myers, who studied under James Cone, which is the originator of Black liberationist theology. I kind of got this blend where I understand Black liberation, but then I also went to Yale, so I can see context. So for me, I'm very real. I get in trouble a lot, because I'm not finna act like we're not in the Bible. We're not present. I'm not finna run from the fact that people have questions. So for me, I think America is at a place where we have to come to grips that a lot of what we taught was not right. That picture that grandmama put in her house, that's not Jesus. That was an evil ruler in another side of this country who decided to paint a picture of himself.
Caesar Borgia.
You know who I'm talking about. And so that's not right. So I think what I want my generation and those behind me to understand is that although the gospel was manipulated, it's still right. It's the equivalent of if I take a donut and I crush it and I pour Clorox on it and I jam it down somebody's mouth and you see it and then you tell a man he died. First story, he died because they poisoned a donut. Second story, he died because he ate a donut. 5 generations later, stay away from donuts.
Right.
So for me, I think we have to be more vocal in the approach that, hey, I believe Jesus was a man of color. You got me? I believe he was from a region where the people had color. I know for a fact that Christianity was introduced to African Americans before we came here.
Okay.
So we have to be knowledgeable and be an apologist. And here's what I would encourage every pastor watching right now. I may be the best communicator on Sunday morning, but I may not be the most well-learned person when it comes to Black theology in a lot of ways. And I have a cat in my city who's cold-blooded. When I tell you this boy, he can, it was in 1862.
Right.
And I love that about him. And I love sitting down with him, say, show me what I'm missing. Because at first I was like, man, all these different religions are popping up everywhere. Like, what's going on? He said, Mike, let me show you why they say this, why they say that. So for me, I think we just got to be well knowledgeable and stop. And here's what the church does. You just need to know Jesus. Well, this generation's smart, bro. Like, you're not for this generation. Common sense tells me like something ain't right about this. And we have to be able to approach it in love and not be offended by the questions that come.
Yeah. How do some of the white pastors, if you do have those conversations, kind of process your message of the Jesus that we've been given, which is white Jesus, is not Jesus? What is their response?
It's a hard pill to swallow. I think it's and if I'm being honest, I don't think we ever come to any solution. I think they tolerate it in the conversation.
Could you see them putting could you see them doing the opposite, putting a colored Jesus in their churches?
No, I don't think we could. I think there's so much oppression, and we have to talk about Willie Lynch. We have to talk about all these things that are embedded in the very fabric of who we are. It's so much. And I think right now, man, I just don't ever see that being widely accepted, because again, and let's do this deductively. Can we play devil's advocate?
Of course.
Let's play devil's advocate. If from the beginning we were told Jesus was Black and everything in America was centered around the African American race, how hard would it be for you to lay down your privilege? Like, really think about, let's play devil's advocate, that if everything in the entire history for you was slanted toward your advantage, how hard would it be for you to say, but conversely, how long do we preach a lie? How long do we live a lie?
I mean, we have conversations like that on the platform because I think about white people and then slavery, and I don't think our spirit is equipped to really carry out slavery as Black people. I don't see me and you
absolutely
being cool with like having a bunch of slaves in the back and just being like, it's all good. I could see us having compassion. We're going to see them down. We're going to try to feed them because that's the type of people I think we are on a spiritual level.
Black people fit in wherever they go. Like, wherever we go, we fit in. It is only, to me, sometimes the Black race that we can see the worst thing in the world and still have compassion and pray for them.
Have you been noticing an exodus happening in the church with Black people because of just where things are, the hypocrisy? Have you noticed people kind of transitioning away?
Yeah, I think, see, statistics, I think sometimes we tend to land in our area of influence, but the statistics say as a whole, there's an exodus from church. So for me, when I look at it, I'm a church growth strategist. I love church growth, right? So for me, when you look at it, there are a lot of factors. And when I say a lot of factors, you have number one, church never made the transition. So you're just now seeing some black churches get technology.
Kind of like Blockbuster to the Netflix
Blockbuster
thing.
to Netflix. Then you also have this generation of people like myself and sometimes others like millennials who grew up with white friends. So now you see this multicultural move happening where you see a lot of young millennials going to these contemporary white churches. All right. Then you also see the fall of so many pastors and so many church leaders. We can't ignore that we make mistakes. We were put on this pedestal, then we find out we're human.
Right.
And then that impacts the culture. Then now you got Hebrew Israelites and all these different things rising up. So, and now you feel it. You know what I'm saying?
Like
you feel it. Spirituality. Yeah, all of that.
Crystals.
You got people got crystals. Can I do this? Can I do that? And then when you've been beat for so long, I'm going to say this and I pray I don't get in trouble for it. A beaten dog will stop coming if you call him. If I beat a dog long enough, he going to stop coming when I call his name. Conversely, we've been beating down people for so long in church that now that we're opening our doors, say, hey, whosoever will, let them come. They're like, nah, bro, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, nah, bro, I'm good. Last time I came, it was my clothes. Then the next time I came, I didn't want to do this. Then the next time I came, so after a while, it's, hey. So for me, what I've been trying to do is, hey, come as you are. And I think what we're seeing in Birmingham, Alabama, and across the world is that thousands of people online and in the room are coming because number one, they can see themselves and they feel comfortable.
I'm going to play a clip for you to react to.
Okay.
This is of Mr. Bishop Whitehead out of Brooklyn.
Okay.
Are you familiar with him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the Bishop Whitehead. And I'll walk you out to my prayer closet. This is my prayer closet. And one would think that, wow, look at your closet. Got all my priestly robes and more. Designer coats, you name it, Gucci, Louis, you name it. Fendi, you name it. More coats.
I got one more clip for you.
Larry, I never disrespected you, brother. I treated you with nothing but respect and integrity. So from where this is coming from, I don't know. I don't need no favors from you, Larry. But my question to you is, Larry, excuse me, ma'am, I don't even know you, ma'am. We can really get like this, all right? You're not gonna laugh at the situation where a gun was pointed at my people. Where a gun was pointed at, I listened to it. Let's go there, Biggie. You're a liar. I'm a liar? Let's go. How am I lying? Biggie. Biggie big, not Biggie small, but you're Biggie big. We had a conversation. And my position was that I preached the gospel of Jesus Christ. Homosexuality is an abomination.
You're mean.
And you want to sit here and validate homosexuality because you just admitted that you're a faggot.
And I wasn't disrespectful to you.
Yes, you was. Yes, you was.
So, that is Pastor Brooklyn Whitehead. I mean, Pastor Whitehead out of Brooklyn. This is a new age pastor. This is a guy that claims to represent the church. Is that giving the church a bad look by what you were able to kind of watch?
What I will say is, I quote Jay-Z, nobody wins when the family feuds. And I think a lot of things that are being brought to the public format, from arguments, from falls, from wins, from losses, I think it all plays a part. I think we're caught in one of those situations where you danged if you do, danged if you don't. And when I say that, if you have something nice, you're doing too much. If you don't have nothing, God must not be on your side. So I think we're in a sensitive season now, because I never try to condemn without full context. I think we're in a sensitive season now to where I had somebody stop me not too long ago, and they was like, they was like, you one of the reasons church is falling off. I'm like, whoa. I was like, what I do? And they was like, every time we turn around, I got it out, your music. What else they said? They said this whole you paying people to come to church, because I did this thing in my city where we was giving away cash and blessing people. They said you basically paying people to come to church. So now you got this watered down gospel. And for me in my opinion, I'm doing what I feel God is calling me to do. But to that person,
Right.
I'm a problem.
Right.
So I think sometimes the problem is relative. And I think what I try my best to do is always try to be on the side of, I think it was Dr. King who said, never tell them against what you're against, just tell them what you're for.
Yeah. With Pastor or Bishop Whitehead, he seems to get backlash from just how he carries himself. Of course, he's not afraid to show off his wealth. How do you process that? I was able to notice your different jewelry. Do you ever had a question to say, let me tone it down? Or how did you just say, I'm going to own it and this is who I am?
I think everybody has to be true to who they are. Everybody from the city of Birmingham who know me, on the average day when you see me, I'm have on a hoodie and some sweatpants. When I get under these lights, shout out to my stylist, Felipe, he gonna have me iced out, everything I need. I think what has to happen now is, I think we just have to be sensitive of the culture we're in. For me, I think we have to understand that a rich pastor isn't the norm. The average church in America is less than 75 people.
Okay.
So if the average church in America is less than 75 people, that means the average pastor is not a mega pastor.
Got
You feel what I'm saying? So the average pastor doesn't have XYZ or flaunts XYZ. If we think about it, all of us can think of a pastor who's doing it the right way.
Yeah.
But sadly, you never hear about the planes that land. You only hear about the planes that crash. So for me, I think I just try my best to just be authentic to who I am,
Yeah.
I get backlash sometimes because I have a shirt on my tattoo or show. How you a pastor with a tattoo?
Right.
Or I got earrings.
Do they
in.
expect you to remove your tattoo?
Yeah, I never forget. I never forget somebody told me, well, he can't be the pastor. I showed up to the hospital to pray with someone who was sick. He can't be the pastor. I showed up, I had my earrings in, my necklace. And I was like, well, what does a pastor look like? Because for years they had on white robes but had black hearts. For years, the deacons wore full 3-piece suits and then smoked out there by the tree. So are you telling me you want me to look it? Because what I've discovered is the new school church is more concerned. I'm going to say this. The old school church to me was more concerned with discretion over deliverance. Everybody knew who was sleeping with who. Everybody knew who was doing what. But hey, keep that down. Long as you were able to sing on Sunday, long as you were able to play your instruments and do what you do. Whereas now I think this generation is really screaming, hey, deliver, like, I don't want to be this way. Like, help me be better. Or if I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong versus just telling me that I'm wrong. And I think there's a journey and a communication gap that we have to fix. Yeah. And if we don't, I think, sadly, my son said to me the other day, he had to do this class. He's in the 9th grade and it's a family class. He had to write what he wanted from his wife. Okay. So I read it and it was some beautiful stuff. But then in one line, he was like, hopefully she's a Christian, but if she's not, I won't judge her. And his daddy, a pastor. So in my head, first thing I said was, I was like, no, you want your wife to be a Christian. But then it gave me insight to his mindset that he was like, Dad, no, if I love her, I try to respect what she loves. And I think if we can have more of an open mind, okay, sit down and talk to me. Or what is the common ground? Because I think at the core of most people, we believe that there is a God. And what I'm discovering that everybody I talk to, especially these cats I talked to yesterday, I felt led to literally stop the truck and just talk to some cats from around the way. And they on the block, smoking weed, everything. I'm just standing there talking to them. They tripping. Like, Pastor, you gonna stay here and talk? Like, let's talk. And one of the things they said to me, said, Pastor Mike, they said, we love listening to you. We just don't like coming. It just always, and I'm like, wow. Because if we don't create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable, you can't clean a fish until you catch it.
Right.
And sadly, there's a generation, man, to me who's dying. You know, I had the opportunity to say the prayer at a hip hop concert in my city. Okay. And I got a lot of backlash about that. But for me, we got to go to where they are. And that's my goal, man. Firemen don't run from the fire, they run to it.
Yeah. That's that kind of makes me think about a little bit of what Pastor Whitehead said. He was attacking another pastor that was on camera, and he talked about like his stance on homosexuality. Now that makes me think, how do you process the homophobia that has taken place in church over the years? That's a big conversation,
Yeah.
particularly in the black church. How does Pastor Mike like position himself in seeing like people not be fully accepted, and then other people feeling that some folks should not be accepted in church because of their sexuality?
That's a very slippery slope, because for years there were people in the ministry and in the church at large who we all knew had certain issues, and it was ignored because they were incredible at what they did. You know, so for me, one of the things I did that was special, I have all types of people come to my church. When I say all types of people, I think my church is the only place where a PhD sit next to a GED, where straight sit next to gay, rich sit next to poor. And one of the things I started realizing was all this was happening. And it blew my mind, because everybody knows what I believe about God, what I believe about the sanctity of marriage, what I believe the Bible says about marriage. But yet so many LGBTQ people were filling my church.
Okay.
So I sat down with maybe probably 15 or 20 of them. It real informal. Went out to eat. I said, y'all help me. I said, help me realize. And one of the most beautiful things I did was, one of them said, Pastor, I think it'd be dope if you read a book entitled "And They Own Receive Them Not." And it talks about the argument against homosexuality and biblical. So what I tried to do was make myself knowledgeable on the subject, because here's the reality. And I know I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but I have to be me. I believe the average Christian's problem isn't homosexuality.
Okay.
I think the core root of the problem is acceptable sins or acceptable issues. Let's not acceptable issues, because if the drummer has a child out of wedlock, he still gets to play the drum, but the girl whose stomach is showing has to sit down because it's not acceptable. So for me, what I'm trying to do is be well balanced on what's not just my stance on homosexuality. How do I lovingly lead any person who I feel is not where God needs them to be to where God wants them to be?
Right. So you kind of look at it like, I'm not here to change them, or you just here to love on them. How do you?
I'm here to love on them. I don't think it's my job to change them. You know, do you have any kids?
No, sir.
All right, so I have 5 kids, all right? All right, so since I have 5 kids, if Xander, my oldest, gets hurt, I love him. And as much as I love him, I'm not equipped to change him, to fix it. So my love for him has to get him to a doctor who specializes in that. So for me, if somebody comes to me who's an alcoholic, if somebody comes to me who's strung out on drugs, somebody comes to me who's dealing with lust and sexual issues, because even when it comes to, I sat down with a couple not too long ago who called and said, well, Pastor Mike, here's what we're dealing with. And I told him, I said, well, lust is lust. The same way a brother is lusting over a female, to me, either way, it's lust. How do I lead you to where God wants you to be? And for me, I'm bold enough to say I don't have those answers, bro. You know what I'm saying? I don't have those answers. I'm still learning myself, you know? I'm in this weird place of I try my best to love everybody. So if I love this person, I'd never forget.
It just doesn't sit right in your spirit to condemn anybody.
Yeah, I never forget, bro. I was in church, and I'm going to try my best to get you this footage. I felt the Lord leading us to an altar call. I had so much weed on my church altar, I had to call the chief of police. That's how bad. I said, man, we're going to leave it on the altar today. They just start throwing weed on the altar, a gun. This one lady brought some bullets and said she had just caught her husband in something. She came to church to make her peace with God, and she's going to kill herself. You got me? And when these young dudes walk to the altar and start giving me weed, you should have saw the church mothers and everybody crying and screaming. Yet when another type of person walked up, it got real quiet because it's not socially acceptable.
Right.
So for me, I'm in this weird place right now to where there is no win for me. If I look at a person who's an LGBTQ and say, I love you, man, I want you to come sit on the front row right next to me. And at Rock City Church, you're welcome. He going to hell. Pastor Mike, God can't be in him. But if I look at a brother who was selling bricks and brought him to church and said, man, he just gave his life to Christ. And so what I've discovered is, and this may be a quotable moment for everybody watching, if you're gonna be a bridge, you have to be comfortable being walked on both sides. And so for me, there are people who are not gonna like my message. They're not gonna like how I love people. They're not gonna like how open I am about some of the mistakes I made. I never forget the Sunday I stood in church and told everybody, man, I had a child out of wedlock. I was in my early 20s and I just knew I just wanted to do right. I never forget this dude walked up to me and was like, bro, my dad had me in his early 20s and he was from a pastor's family and they hit me. You got me? My father didn't accept me. That dude right now is changing thousands of lives speaking. So for me, man, I'm gonna just be me and I'm gonna try my best to love people. When I see the life of Jesus, I rarely see him condemning. And the one time he did act a fool, I think it was at the church. So for me, I'm gonna try my best to love people. And if I get it wrong, I'm gonna sincerely get it wrong. But I rather die knowing. My father said this when he was 12. I'm about to cry thinking about it because I never forget he said, Mike, when I die, I want them to put on my tombstone, here's a man who tried to love everybody. And for me, it just hit me now at 39. It's like, yo, like that. I think when I tell you I think about everybody and my heart just like even sitting today, I was on my way here and I was seeing where all these major brands are pulling out because of some of the stuff Kanye said. And in my head, I'm like, dude, to go from being a billionaire to all your money being gone in one day, everybody pulling out, you don't have your kids, you don't have your wife, you don't have friends. In my heart, I'm like, man, I wonder who loving him. His mama gone, like who, like that's how I'm built. Like everything he said, he shouldn't have said a lot of what he said. Okay, let's remove that. At the end of the night, yo, who got this dude? You know what I'm saying? Because the truth of the matter is, if we wake up in the morning and the headlines read, Kanye West takes his own life.
Is that a fear of yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm at too.
Yeah.
That I think he either will drive himself so crazy that he'll do something, maybe not verbatimly intentional, but just go somewhere. Or literally, I think someone will hurt him.
Will hurt him.
Because he's putting a target on his back.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. And that's how I'm built. You know, when I was 9, I never get one Sunday, I got a whooping. And I ain't get a whooping for cussing, didn't get a whooping for fussing. My dad found out after Sunday school, I would go to each deacon, ask him for 50 cents, and then go to the corner store and give all the winos my money. So every Sunday I had a line about 8 guys who wait on Reb. So he's called me Reb, son. Here come Reb, son. And my dad said, you giving all your money? But my heart has always been, and I hope somebody at home can feel my heart when I say this. If I walk into a room and everybody's smoking weed, one mindset is if the pastor walking, you need to put that up out of respect. I agree with that. But if I also ain't strong enough to sit in that room and still reach them, my oil ain't worth this oil. Either the blood of Jesus is Kool-Aid or it's blood. I should be able to walk into a strip club and be like, hey, right now I just want to witness to you and I should be able to sit around cats who may believe something else. Like, man, I know what you believe, but I'm just here to love you. And for me, I think that's going to be the shift. That if we can't come out the pulpit and out the building and meet people where they are, there are 2 types of people, and never forget I said this. Either you're going to be a travel agent or a tour guide. A travel agent books you a trip to a place they'll never go. Or tour guide is in the jungle with you saying, that's a lion, that's a tiger, that's a bear. And so for me, I want to be a tour guide.
By mentioning Kanye, you got me kind of thinking about what he currently is experiencing. You know, it seems like he was trying to realign himself back with his faith. He dropped Jesus Walks in early of his career, and that was a thing that was big. And then now he ended up kind of pushing the Sunday service, the choir, beautiful music. And then here he is at this point. Pastor Mike, what would you tell Kanye if he was watching this? What kind of words, being the loving person that you exemplify, what would you tell him that you think his spirit would need?
If I had the opportunity to talk to Kanye West, I would simply say, number 1, God loves you. You know, number 2, I would say, I repent to you on behalf of every Christian institution, myself and everybody who didn't understand your methods, but we understood your message. I would tell them, man, that life is hard. You know, I can't imagine not having my babies, bro. Like, I'm a daddy. Like, when I say daddy, I was in Nashville last night, got on the road at 3 a.m. because I promised my boys I'd be there to see them do something this morning. Saw them do it this morning, got on the road, came straight to Atlanta. Gonna drive back because one of them got a bowling tournament. I'm a daddy. Every Saturday, no matter what I got going on, I coach my son's flag football team. I can't imagine life without him. And so I would tell Kanye, number 1, you're loved, man. Number 2, I would tell him, I would tell them that every message that you feel God gives you, you now have to discern if God wants you to release it. And I would try my best to just be there, man. I can't imagine seeing the documentary mess me up
Okay, with
on
the relationship with
Netflix.
his mother.
That was the foundation, bro. That was the foundation.
Yeah.
So to me, there's no foundation. You pour your all into your family, you lose that. You make the shift back to Christianity, and it's criticized. It's just so many layers to it. You know what I'm saying? And I think I would just simply say, I love you, bro. And I think there are more people for you than against you, but your pain makes being for you hard.
Or how is he expressing
How he
his pain?
expresses it. And some of the things he's saying now, it's just impossible to be there for you with,
Yeah.
and in my heart of hearts, my discernment tells me there are people in his ear who are kicking knowledge to him, and then he's going in front of cameras quoting what he hasn't fully learned.
I've heard that as criticism too.
Yeah.
Like, he's not doing his own maybe research and
Just
understanding. He's
hearing,
kind of,
taking a small,
and if it sounds good, he's
must
running
be
with
good.
it.
Yep.
It kind of makes me want to, with you being a pastor, talk about wealth. And that was somewhat of our conversation today. I've heard Kanye go on camera talking about, like, I'm rich. Like, you can't really tell me nothing.
You can't tell.
Is there like a
nothing.
Bible verse that talks about a man and his wealth and just wisdom? Because he's making it feel like I've accomplished all this money, and so therefore no one can tell me nothing.
I'm going to paraphrase. The text says it's harder for a poor man to enter the kingdom than a rich man. Blessings make sick people sicker. That's a simple but strong statement. Blessings make sick people sicker. If you are a drug addict, poor. If I gave you $2 million, you would overdose. If you cheated, broke. If I gave you $20 million, you'll just cheat at a better level. And what I think now is so many of us ascribe what we do. I taught this week, and I talked about Psalms 23 is so cold-blooded. It says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down. That word maketh is forceful, which means every time I tried to get up, he held me down.
Got you.
Shepherd means led. And sadly, there's so many people right now who thought being saved was the final step. I gave my life to Christ. When God is not just a God that wants to save you, he wants to lead you. And when I say lead you, my whole life, I can't take credit. It's so easy for me to be arrogant and almost borderline demonic right now. Think about this. I started church. It becomes one of the fastest growing churches in the Southeast.
Right.
I do a music career, and out the gate, it takes gospel music by storm.
Right.
I'm a genius, boy. Like, watch this. If I was doing anything else, you would call me Mark Zuckerberg right now. To take 10 people and $10,000 and turn it into all of this. But you want to know why I don't? Because when I think about it, every place in my life that I'm winning, I didn't pick. I was led to it.
Okay.
I tear my ACL, break my leg. I go to the wrong hospital. We get lost. We pull off the exit to get the directions. I'm in front of a building. I hear the Lord say, start the church. That's where I started the church.
Gotcha.
I'm in church and we're having church. And all of a sudden, something in my gut says, and it's going to be. I never sat down and really wrote that. He put that in me. I'm at Bible study and the band is playing during the greeting period. Dun, 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 dun. Then all of a sudden I'm like, I got it. Hey, and it's a Tuesday night, so all my young people there. That becomes I got it. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida at the Potter's House, and I didn't even realize I was in concert. I went thinking I was doing one song. No other artists show up. They say, it's on you tonight. You got an hour. I look at Vaughn and say, okay, I remember when he saved my life. That becomes amazing. So every major area in my life wasn't because of my genius. God was leading me. And Ye and so many millionaires and so many athletes don't realize, man, I don't do the whole God thing. But God he been making ways for you your whole life. So for me, man, I think some of us, we make it to the league. Our platforms grow. Like, you know this, man. It's hard getting 700,000 subscribers on YouTube. That ain't easy. This ain't TikTok where you go viral. You can have a video do 1 million views and don't get no subscribers from it on YouTube. It's hard.
Right.
For 700,000 people to say, I like this, that ain't because you dope. That's because God breathed on your dopeness.
Gotcha.
So for me, man, I think so many people, from athletes, entertainers, influencers, we are in a dangerous place when we start attributing so much of our success to our own doing. And that's when you start thinking, I'm rich. Can't nobody say nothing to me until the bank say, we don't want your money.
Yeah.
You know,
That humility starts kicking in.
It kicks in real quick. But sadly, our ascension killed so many bridges and so many people. And now you find yourself in this place where you sitting in a room by yourself, bro. And I wrestle with anxiety bad. My lowest nights have been some of my successful nights. Like, the worst night I had this year was the night I won Artist of the Year. I'm sitting in the crowd, Kurt Franklin, Marvin Sapp, everybody that are heroes. When I say heroes, like, my heroes ain't Jay-Z. It was Kurt, Tamala, Marvin, Fred, John, Dietrich, James, Ty. And they sitting there, and I'm sitting there, and they was like, and the Artist of the Year is Pastor Mike J. And I just look back at my parents like, bro. And I go on stage, and that night I go to after the event, everybody's having a good time. I get back to the room, and I literally cried myself to sleep. Because again, it's like, okay, number one, what did I do to get here? 2, how do I maintain it? 3, I didn't get certain calls I thought I would get. Like, bro, I'm proud of you. Hey, man, keep doing your thing. And it's like I'm sitting, and you get to this moment where God gave me everything I prayed for and never stopped to tell me it was painful. And every entrepreneur can feel me when I say this, that he helped you birth the biz and never told you what it would cost you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You get it. You feel, oh my God. Or you dream that, no, I'm gonna do this business and my homeboy gonna do this, then my cousin gonna do this. And the very people you want to do it with don't even appreciate it. So now, you better stop me, man. I'm getting on it now.
It's fine. I want to stay in this space of terms of, with ego, because Kanye is very ego, is what he's been proud to talk about it. But I just wonder, can ego exist in a place of really committing yourself to Christ and being of God? And that's where I think there's a hypocrisy there based off what you're telling me, which is you're supposed to be a child, it's supposed to be led, and you recognize that God is there to lead you and that the blessings come from him as opposed to yourself. And I think Kanye is saying, I'm creating these.
Let me show you what's cold-blooded. All right, so the world calls it ego. Biblically, we call it confidence. And I have this confidence that he who began a good work shall perfect it. So let's just do this deductively. Let's take Jesus and put him on a chart. Okay. How much, let's take the word faith and confidence out. How much ego does it take to walk up to somebody who's blind and say, you shall see? That's a confidence.
Yeah.
I believe ego can exist in the right ecosystem.
Got you.
Ego. So ego, hey man, I'm the truth. You need that in certain professions.
Understood.
Jordan got to step on the floor like can't nobody see me.
Yes.
Deontay Wilder got to step into that ring like, oh, he not finna knock me out. You need that. But what I'm realizing is ego, absent the right ecosystem, corrupts.
Got you. So
for me, when I go into the music studio, like, don't nobody want to see me.
Yeah.
I'm in that joint. Hey, they don't want to see me, bro. I'm different. Like, I get in my bag. I ain't like everybody from Atlanta, Chicago, and Houston. We ain't got that in Birmingham. We ain't got producers. I had to be my own producer. I had to learn how to record myself. This is what I do. But you want to know what? Then I quit. I got an ecosystem around me that be like, all right, man, you getting beside yourself. That's why when you see it, people around me now, Dre walked me to class in the 7th grade when I was being bullied. Tiffany and Leslie was there when nobody had nothing. We didn't have enough money to pay people. Their salary was, hey, when I eat, you eat.
Right.
And we would all go to the Mexican restaurant and order nachos and yada yada. Or my wife, who's been with me since the 12th grade. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or my brother who's on staff who know all my dirty draws. So for me, I think even when I saw the documentary from Ye, and I see it in so many documentaries at the beginning, them people at the beginning, once you start ascending, they just kind of, there's a sense of entitlement that comes sometimes. And now you got to cut this person. So for me, I would tell somebody right now, don't lose your swag. That's like, I hate when preachers tell single people, you need to ask God to take that desire to have sex away. No, heck no, you better not do that, because you're going to be married and need that. And the problem is the same devil that got the married men horny got the married women dry. It's like, no, so married women only want to have no sex. The single people want to have all the sex. So no, don't ask God to take that desire away. What you need to say now is like, okay, God, give me the strength to overcome this desire till I get what I need. And what I'm going to tell you now is, don't ask God to take that ego. You're going to need that when you step into a bank and that system is built to tell you no. So they will give you a $200,000 house loan, a $45,000 car note, but won't give you a $10,000 business loan.
Come on.
So you're going to need a certain level of ego to walk into a room and be like, all right, this is what we're going to do. I can't afford to fix none of this, but let's go. I tell you what, go down to so-and-so, get me this. Let's put some stuff right here. I'm going to paint this. No, you need that dog. But what I am saying is the ecosystem is the leash that says, hey, I'm going to let you bow. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
But now you're going too far. You know what I'm saying?
You think his mother was his ecosystem?
Absolutely. That was the ecosystem. That was the ecosystem. And I'm going to say this. I think the mother was the ecosystem. And I think rejection was too.
Kind of keep him humble.
It keeps you humble. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about this. If we go outside right now, we in the South and we have hot summers. If God gave, because we equate sunshine to good days. If God gave you all sunshine, what would happen to the grass?
It would dry up and get burnt.
Because you need rain, which is equivalent to what? Bad day. You need wins and losses.
Right.
So for me, man, I think sometimes when we experience so many W's, we start kind of having this God complex.
Wait. Ain't my money back.
Yeah, you know.
How is it? Ain't nobody can tell me nothing.
And can't nobody tell me nothing. And for me, I've been up and I've been down, bro. Like tomorrow, something can come out about me and everybody through with me. Tomorrow. And we live in a culture now where it don't even have to be true. It just got to go viral. Somebody can take a clip of what I said today talking to you and take that clip and then chop that joint. And next thing I know, man, Pastor Mike said he don't like so-and-so. And you know, like, that ain't what he said. But ain't nobody going to go listen to the full 1 hour. They're going to take this 1 30-second clip.
Right.
So what I've learned is to be even. Because for me, and I'm going to stop talking, I don't have a governor. You know, like, I don't have a 50.
Right.
Like, that's what I had to, I'm either all the way happy or all the way depressed. You know, like, for me, it was either high or low. So what I've been doing in this season of my life is kind of just staying mid and understanding that you're going to have highs, you're going to have lows, but remain balanced. Don't let your ego ruin your ecosystem.
What would Pastor Mike tell people who are on the fence about joining or leaving the church? What would you tell them for people that stepped away from the church because they felt that there was a large hypocrisy, they weren't being accepted, or they just felt that it was too uptight? I think that's a big concern for people.
Maybe you're watching right now, you're on the fence, like, hey, I'm done with church, man. I went to this church, had a bad experience. They were judgmental. People weren't who they said they were. I would say this. Have you ever been to a bad restaurant and you didn't get the service you wanted? The hostess was mean. The waitress was nasty. The food was cold. Can I ask you a question? Did you go home and say, I'm never eating again? Or did you find a better restaurant? Did you learn how to cook the meal you like yourself? And what I would tell you right now is, yes, you may have experienced a bad church, but that is not indicative of all churches. Yes, there may be a bad pastor. He's not indicative of all pastors. What I would tell you now is the same thing you did at that restaurant. Go find a church that fits you and learn how to prepare that meal at home. Get in the word for yourself. I want you to study in such a way that if you sit in the church on Sunday morning and you hear something that's left, you can say, nah, this ain't for me. And I really believe that the problem that we have right now is that because of slavery, because of Jim Crow, because of the Willie Lynch syndrome, the church was the only place historically where a black person was anything. They would be a boy in the field and on Sunday morning be the chairman of the deacon board. So the church became this institution And we stop making people realize that you are the church, when the church was never just meant to be a place. It was supposed to be, let me say it better. The church was never meant to be a noun only. It was meant to be a verb, which means when you went, it went with you. So I want to help you now realize that, hey, you may have had some bad experiences. Can I help you? I'm a pastor. I've hurt some people and been hurt by some people. As a pastor, I've said some things to people and upset them, and they left my church and was like, I ain't never coming back. And to this day, I'm like, I wish I wasn't as blunt as I was, as strong as I was. But here's what I love so much about life. If you're breathing, it gives you opportunity for another chance. So do me a favor, find a church that you can go to. Do me a favor. The pandemic has helped us realize you don't even have to go to it physically first. You can almost shop for churches like you shop for cars and go online and check somebody out. If you see something that blesses your life, I personally believe the hope of the world is the local church. That's my personal belief. The hope of the world is the local church. And if we can have church and community come together, maybe you're an activist and you don't believe in organized religion, you don't believe in church. I want to encourage you to do something I had to do in my city. I had to humble myself as a pastor because the Black Lives Movement is the first movement, social justice movement, that was not birthed out of the church. So I had to humble myself to the organizers in my city and come to the table before there was something on the table. I had to build bridge, build fellowship. I believe we can come together as a community.
And how do people support your particular church? What are the Instagram websites?
If you're looking for a great church, you can go to therockcity.org or download the Rock City Church app, or you can follow me on all social media platforms at Pastor Mike Jr. If I could leave you with an inspirational word, there was a man on the 9th floor of a building. Floors 1 through 8 were engulfed in flames. He looked out the window and the fire department yelled, "Jump." That man eventually died in the fire because, like so many of us, he was afraid of the problem, which was the fire, and jumping, which was the solution. I know you got a lot going on in your life, my friend. I know life is difficult, or maybe you're in one of the best seasons of your life, but you don't want to get too arrogant or too egotistical to think you can't fall off. Do me a favor. Make sure that in your journey and your walk with Christ, your walk in life, you don't forget that the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. And maybe you're on the fence about what you're going to do next. Here's your word. Jump. I'm crazy enough to believe that if you jump, hey, you could be a kid sitting at home with a studio in his basement singing songs, and the next thing you know, he's on stage getting awards. You can be a young person with a computer and a camera and say, man, one day, man, I'm going to just interview people and do so-and-so. And now you got a platform that millions of people come to. What if you're the next, but you're afraid to jump? Do me a favor. Jump.
All right. Mr. Pastor Mike Jr., thank you for your wonderful interview.
Thank you, bro.